cricket match. Yes, he is just watching, and there is a great roar and excitement in him as well as around him, and there is a great noise also. And at that time, if I make a phone call to my friend in order to inquire some important thing, will it give me a positive experience? Even not only to me, even the receiver of my communication will also be a bit disturbed because I communicated to that person at a wrong time, or timing of my communication was wrong. In second picture, you can see that a person is attending a meeting. Yes, and while a person is a meeting and attending meeting, he receives a phone call, no matter how important that phone call is. If he picks up that phone call, yes, do you think he will be able to communicate well? Because he knows that his communication with the other end in the telephone is also overheard by the person present over there in the meeting. Secondly, it is also the case, it also happens that this picking of phone call that also affects the communication of the meeting also. So a wrong timing, and this at this juncture, the person won't be able to communicate well. That is true. Suppose a person is sleeping, a person at midnight. We all have experiences of receiving phone calls at midnight. Yes, a person is in slumber, is sleep, half awake, half slept. Yes, and in that case, he receives a phone call, or has to enter into a sort of communication. Friends, that affects the effectiveness of communication. Then last picture you can see, a person is driving. Suppose he is stuck in traffic and he is driving, and at that time he receives a phone call or has to enter into a sort of communication that will affect the quality of communication. In this way, friends, that poor timing acts as a barrier to effectiveness of communication. Sometimes, friends, poor timing as a barrier to effective communication also to is experienced by the persons at the lower strata in the hierarchy. Sometimes the upper authority just communicates to them just close to the deadline. So sometimes if a communication is sent close to a deadline, it evokes resentment and fails to deliver the message. So suppose, for example, students are to be communicated the timings and date of examination well in advance, that is 15 to 1 month. But suppose a person comes, or the authority just announces that only tomorrow your exam will start, your final exam will start. So that will affect, and that will affect your performance, not only at examination, even at all, that is your career will be at stake. So poor timing. So in this way we can say that through all these cases we can understand that poor timing of any communication that acts as a barrier to communication. Next, let us come to discuss some semantic barriers of communication. Friends, semantic barriers, that means the related to the barriers or limitations of language. Some barriers, we know, friends, that sometimes what happens, that we have to communicate through words. Words are the vehicle of our messages. In 80% of our communication, 80% of messages conveyed through words and the meanings. Now, friends, somehow what happens, that if this interpretation of these words goes wrong, suppose the message I want to convey, that is interpreted somehow in another way by my receiver, so that goes and that leads to a failure of communication, that affects the effectiveness of communication. So the first is, friends, denotative and connotation, or denotation and connotation of words, or denotative or connotative meaning of the words. Friends, all we know that words carry the meaning, but these meanings are of two sorts, that is denotative, and denotative meanings we can define as the meaning, the dictionary meaning, technical dictionary meaning of a word is called the denotative meaning. And connotative, that is words and their meanings have their emotional association. So emotional association are called the connotations and connotative meaning. For example, friends, here I have given two words with their connotative meaning and denotative meaning, and that is how different they are interpreted. For example, poison. Yes, who doesn't know what is poison? Yes, a denotative meaning or dictionary meaning of poison is a substance causing illness or death when eaten, drunk, or absorbed, even in relatively small quantity. Just beneath it is a word pesticide. Friend, pesticide, you know, that a kind of poison meant specifically to kill insects, weeds, etc. So both the denotation of both the words poison and pesticide, that is ultimately it leads to poisonous effects. But let us see the connotation of both the word. Yes, poison, the connotation of poison is harmful, dangerous, evil, whereas the connotation of pesticide is helpful, safe for humans so far as it is used to control the insects on the crops and etc. So this is the denotative and denotation and connotation of word. Let us take another example, friends, that we can cite so many examples for this denotation and connotation. I have taken one example, and that is of the word thin. Friends, if you look up the word thin in thesaurus in dictionary, you will be treated with a variety of synonyms to replace it. You will see that thin refers to a body type. It means slender, slim, delicate, emaciated, fragile, gaunt, lean, skinny, small, or wasted. All of these words are dictionary meanings of thin. So strictly speaking, if you you can interchange thin with any of these words given in the sentence. For example, if I say that my sister is thin, you can change it into my sister is slim, or my sister is wasted, or my sister is emaciated. It would all mean the same thing if you only consider the denotative meaning of the word. But friends, let us say the connotation of that word. Once you consider the connotation of the synonym of the word thin, you realize that most of the words cannot be used in the specified context of the sentence. Saying my sister is slim is drastically different from my sister is wasted. Although both words are synonyms of the same word thin, but slim evokes a positive body image, while wasted means the person is undernourished, which is why she is thin. You should be careful, friends, of the connotation of words, since they can entirely give new meaning to words that you have otherwise thought of as synonyms. So friends, when we communicate, yes, we have to take care of and we have to be very sensitive at the part of selection of the words so far as our message and composition of our message is concerned. Next in the semantic bias is the bypassed instruction. Friends, bypassing is said to have occurred if the sender and the receiver of a message attribute different meaning to the same word or use different word for the same meaning. See, for that, just in order to just drive my point home, friends, here I have given two figures. Yes, that here is the case of a new employee, and the head of the organization just instructs this new employee and asks him to go and burn the CD. Now, actually, in the organization, and we know in the technical terms, to burn a CD, that is to make another copy of that CD in computer. But the poor new employee does not attribute that meaning to that instruction and goes and literally burns that CD through the matchstick. So this is called to that this is the case of bypassed instruction. If we look around, friends, we you can come across so many miscommunications or failures of communication owing to this sort of bypassed instruction. This was a simple instance in order to drive my point home, friends. Next, friends, different comprehension of reality. Friends, reality. What is reality? Well, reality is a very complex concept. It is ever changing. It is never a fixed concept. Yes, a reality of an event or an object would appear different to different people. Even different abstractions, different interference, different evaluations would make different people comprehend reality differently, and that we know, friends. And so the bias that take place, that occur, that operate within our communicative process are different, are like this: abstracting, slanting, and inferring. Let us say abstracting, friends. Abstracting simply means that selecting some details and omitting the others. Yes, it may cause problem in communication. Friends, you might have seen that sometimes we tend to take some clues or some partial things into account, and we frame an opinion about it. So this may lead to a failure to come. Sometimes it is necessary, friends. Sometimes abstracting is necessary and desirable in some cases, as it saves valuable time, space, and money. But it may pose a grave barrier to communication when it becomes a victim of our allness fallacy. Friends, many times what happens that we know little of some aspects, but we feel that I know everything. For example, a figure I have given, a picture I have given, that is how media presents. It's a famous sarcastic uh, caricature regarding the role of media in society, that what aspects are, and how media represents it, and how media creates hype. See, actually in this picture you will see that one person is running behind with some deadly weapon behind one, but when the same thing is taken with a very narrow focus on it, that is, the whole picture gets altered when it is represented somewhere else. So this is an example, simple example of abstracting, that we may fail or our communication may get affected when there goes wrong abstracting, or people become victim of barrier, or that lose effectiveness in their communication when they resort to this that is faulty abstracting of any reality. Next is, friends, slanting. Friends, slant means a bias. Yes, to slant an issue means to take something and show it and write about it as either being positive or negative instead of just writing the facts. Yes, as I told you, that reality appears different to different people because of so many influences, so many factors. So when a particular reality is presented by a person, yes, there are possibility of slanting in that representation. Let us take the case, that issue of assisted suicide. Yes, the first at the outset, let us see, consider the case of assisted suicide with no slant. That is in a factual thing, that there are approximately 1200 assisted suicide performed each year in the United States. The majority of these are performed in Oregon, the only US state where assisted suicide is legal. Outside Oregon, doctors who assist patients to die run the risk of going to jail for murder. So this is, friends, issue, a very sensitive issue that is ringing all over the world about this assisted suicide. The patients, those who are in a very severe ailment, and they are not, that there are no scope of getting their getting the revival from that ailment. So they seek the medical assistance in order to end their life. And this is also termed as the assisted suicide. Yes. Now the same thing is presented in positive slant in this way, that Dr. Kevorkian, a brilliant and compassionate man, helped over 1,000 poor people find peace in death. Without assisted suicide, many of those people would have been forced to live as quadriplegics with no mobility or live in terrible pain. Yes, so this is how positively the thing is presented. Now the same thing that is goes in negative slant like this, that assisted suicide, euthanasia, whatever you want to call it, it is murder. Only God can choose if someone lives or dies. So in this way, friends, the one thing, if it is presented in positive slant, it appears different. When it is presented in the negative slant, it appears different. So in this way, we have to take care of this different comprehension of reality. Next is, friends, inferring. And inference is the act of coming to logical conclusion without actually witnessing or having first-hand knowledge of an event. For example, it is inferring when you use clues around you to find out what is happening. For example, let us say you are reading a book, and that book begins in this way. It starts as saying that once upon a time, Tim was sitting in front of a large screen with popcorn in his hands. Now, having read up to this, what would you infer? You would infer that Tim was in a movie theater waiting for a movie to start. Now, this is an instance, friends. So in inferring, what happens, that we take the clues from one, that suppose there are people and there is something, there is a crowd. You would infer from a distance, or seeing the crowd on the road, that is an accident might have happened. So in this way, that we infer